Hey there, fight fans. It's John Pollock here alongside Cody Saftic. We are going to be talking about the newly formed women's 145-pound weight class. It was announced Tuesday night on ESPN that Holly Holm is going to be fighting Germaine de Randamie February the 11th in Brooklyn, New York. Maybe that fight, the fact that it's happening, not a shocker, but at 145 and for their now 11th championship that they are installing, a 145-pound weight division. What was your reaction to this, Cody? And is this a needed weight class in the UFC?
My immediate reaction, I think, is the same as everybody at home. Well, why isn't Cyborg in this fight? I think the answer is not straight up. It's not obvious, but she's obviously having health issues from the last cut to 140 pounds. And obviously, they're going to just try to drop some interest here, and then she'll come in, she'll challenge for the title at some point. I like the fact that they're bringing in a weight class. The thing is, I don't necessarily see the depth, and I see that when you look at Invicta. Invicta has all the best 145-pound women in the world. And guess what? They've already fought Cyborg, and they've all lost. So now you have Holly Holm, who has some shine because she beat Ronda. She's a former champion in her own right. You have a 37-0 undefeated kickboxing champion here. Both women combined, John, for 47 and 53 fights respectively in their entire combat sports career. So I like it. I just don't know what you do after this beyond a super fight or two with Cyborg eventually.
So it seems that Dana White was very adamant at the fact, listen, Cyborg was offered a championship fight at 145 for the now canceled January 21st show. She was offered in Brooklyn, and she cited the fact that, yeah, she had all the problems from that weight cut to Lena Landsberg, which is concerning, Cody, when that fight was in September, and she's still feeling the effects now and doesn't believe she could hit 145 even by February the 11th. So Dana White has stated that, listen, we have to move on, and hey, if Holly Holm wins this fight, it could be Ronda going up to 145 for the next title opportunity. So it's a division that, you're right, it doesn't have that depth. That was the biggest criticism with Cyborg and Invicta. Yes, you're seeing the best featherweight in the world, but she was running through women at that division, and how you're going to flesh out this division. And that was always the argument on the UFC's side, was we're not going to create this because of the lack of depth.
Well, what I don't get is if you're Ronda Rousey and you're like, I'm not going to 145 pounds. Now if there's, well, Cyborg's not the champ there. Well, I might go to 145 pounds. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Also, you're creating this division for Cyborg. Let's not make any, let's not kid ourselves with this. They're making the division for Cyborg. So to make this division for her and then be like, well, she's not fighting for the title, it just reminds me a lot way back in the day when they had the lightweight division. It's built for BJ Penn. And you only have Kyle Uno and Dean Thomas and a couple fighters. So a draw ends up being like,
Edwards,
you know what?
He
should have been the champ. But you just canceled the division. You're like, hey, there's no interest here. We only have 4 fighters. They're fighting each other. And that draw obviously threw a little wrinkle in their plan. But now I look at this situation. If she is not the champ, you have 3 contenders, you have 4 contenders, you have a couple girls who are willing to fight there, but if they're all getting buzzsawed by Cyborg, and she's still having trouble making the weight, and there's no guarantee that she's even gonna make 45 now, because she's pretty adamant that she can't even do that, you just have so many uncertainties. It's not necessarily the right time. I think 125 pounds would have made a lot more sense, because you could have had challengers at 115 and 135, floating that in between at 145, there's just not enough. There's not enough girls that are big enough at 145. Leslie Smith, girls like that want to fight, even a Holly Holm, they're not necessarily the biggest 45ers.
No.
Despite Holm fighting as high as, I think, junior middleweight in her boxing career, female junior middleweight.
So when you look at Cyborg and where she's at now, theoretically, let's say, I mean, there is a silver lining to this, that at least this division is created. She doesn't have to look at 140 ever again. This can shut the door on 135 chat for her. At the same time, what part of this entire story do you place on Cyborg and some of the choices she has made and people that she has worked with? I mean, this weight cut for the last Lena Landsberg fight was all the talk that week, was this very strange decision to have her placed on birth control ahead of the fight. I mean, to me, it's something where she needs to sit down and figure out a lot of this, because it's costing her a lot of money. And we're talking about here nearing the end of December, and she's still recovering from a weight cut 3 months ago. That's concerning to me.
I have mixed feelings on it, because I've been very adamant for a long time that she can't make 135 pounds. I know a lot of people will come on record and say she needs to diet, she needs to lose some of the mass. I just don't think it's possible. And when you see what she has to go through to make 140, I think that strengthens my argument that she's just too big. She's always been too big. She can't make the weight. The problem is that I've always believed that George Lockhart is the best nutritionist. He's the best guy for the job. And so you bring this guy in, who's my number one go-to guy. And now he's starting to question, well, maybe she doesn't have the drive to do it. Maybe she doesn't. And then she's blaming him. She's throwing him under the bus. I don't understand the birth control thing. I've read into it. It kind of makes sense.
We are not scientists.
But
And
that's
George
exactly
Lockhart is a very intelligent
He's the
guy.
closest thing to a scientist, man. He understands the body. He understands it better than everybody. Dolce's the big name guy. George Lockhart's the truth. So if he's going to go on record and say, well, he actually has taken the high road, he's decided to do. So, but I have to side with him. But at the same time, I just don't think 35 is a possibility.
Last thing, does this Brooklyn card, does this need another marquee fight? I don't feel this can headline alone for an arena the size of the Barclays Center and headline a pay-per-view. But
absolutely.
maybe you think differently.
No, we've seen Holly Holm with Shevchenko in the Chicago card, and I don't think it did overwhelmingly
On
big.
television, it did well.
It's a Fox card, so it's going to be that free outlet, so to speak. But I just don't think that Holly Holm, especially coming off the first 2 losses of her career, don't know where that interest is at. Flip side to that, you look at Jermaine de Rondami. She's 6-3. She hasn't fought for a little while.
She's had 2 fights in 3 years.
Right, and she's coming off a win over Anna Elmos, who just retired. It's just not the appealing matchup. So yes, they do need to add something.
All right, leave us your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about the UFC adding a women's 145-pound weight class? Does this have the depth to go on forward? For Cody Saftic, I'm John Pollock, and thanks for watching.